Welcome to a journey across the long-forgotten corridors of Aotearoa's darkest history. For over a century, the hills and valleys of New Zealand have hidden institutions of stone and shadow, places where the line between healing and horror was often blurred. Today, we step inside the ruins. We explore the top 10 most haunted hospitals of New Zealand. These are not just buildings. They are containers for the echoes of the abandoned, the mistreated, and those who simply refuse to leave. Brace yourself. From the salt-sprayed cliffs of the West Coast to the decaying wards of Auckland, we count down to the most terrifying location in the country. Let the tour begin. 10. Barrett Street Hospital, New Plymouth. Opened in the 1920s, Barrett Street Hospital served as Taranaki's medical backbone for decades. Before the shadows moved in, it was a bustling hub of nursing excellence. However, the hospital was born out of a dire era. The 1918 influenza epidemic had decimated the local nursing staff, and 4 nurses died in a single month. This tragedy left a permanent stain on the grounds. By the 1990s, the hospital closed its doors, leaving the iconic red brick nurses' home to rot. The haunting here is intimately tied to the women who once walked these halls. Urban explorers and former security guards describe a heaviness that hits you the moment you cross the threshold of the nurse's home. The most famous encounter involves the phantom Lady in White, believed to be a former matron still performing her rounds. Witnesses have reported the sound of soft, rubber-soled shoes squeaking on the linoleum in empty hallways. On one chilling occasion, a local photographer captured a clear, translucent figure standing in an upper-story window, even though the building was completely boarded up, and the floorboards below that window had long since rotted away. People report sudden drops in temperature and the smell of old antiseptic wafting through rooms where no medicine has been kept for 30 years. 9. MT View Lunatic Asylum, Wellington. Long before the elegant government house stood in Wellington, the site was home to the grim MT View Lunatic Asylum. Opened in 1873, it was designed for 50 patients but soon swelled to over 250. The history before the haunting is one of brutal overcrowding and custodial care, which was little more than imprisonment. Patients like Henry Schulze were documented as being kicked and beaten by warders, living in a state of constant terror until the asylum was demolished in 1910. While the building is gone, the land remembers. The only physical remnant is a singular brick wall, but the paranormal activity is legendary among those who work at the current site. Security guards and staff at the nearby Basin Reserve have reported the sounds of phantom screams echoing from the gardens at night. Vocalizations of the acute excitement recorded in old medical files. Some visitors have seen shadow figures darting behind the trees of the Governor-General's estate, appearing as men in tattered Victorian hospital gowns. The energy is described as restless, as if the spirits of those buried in unmarked graves beneath the manicured lawns are still trying to find a way out of their cages. 8. Westland Hospital, Hokitika. In the heart of the rugged West Coast, Westland Hospital stood as a testament to the harsh gold rush era. Originally built to treat miners and those suffering from infectious diseases, it was a place of high mortality. Life here was isolated and bleak. When it finally closed in the early 2000s, the transition from a place of healing to a ghost hospital was almost instantaneous. Westland is known for its shadow people. Unlike other locations where you might see a face, here you see movement. Visitors have described tall, dark silhouettes that move with incredible speed across the open wards. One specific encounter involved a group of explorers who heard a metallic clatter in the old surgical wing. When they turned, a heavy metal kidney dish was spinning on the floor, as if it had just been dropped by an invisible nurse. The most visceral reports come from the old morgue area, where people feel an intense weight on their chests, a phenomenon known as the old hag syndrome, leaving them paralyzed with fear in the pitch black. 7. Seaview Asylum, Hokitika. Perched on a hill overlooking the Tasman Sea, Seaview was once the largest employer in Hokitika. Its history is a dark mirror of the era's psychiatric practices, including unmodified electroconvulsive therapy and chemical containment. It closed in 2002, but the spirits of the 600 residents who once lived there seem to have stayed behind. Seaview is famous for the Grey Lady. She is said to be a patient who died of a broken heart, and she is often seen wandering the Seaview Terrace, looking out at the ocean. Travelers who stayed at the site when it was briefly used as a backpacker hostel reported terrifying nights. They described doors banging shut in unison down a long hallway, and the sound of fingernails scratching against the inside of the wooden wardrobes. One traveler reported waking up to see an elderly man sitting at the foot of their bed, staring at them with hollow eyes, only to vanish when they reached for the light. The graves on the grounds are perhaps the most unsettling. They are sunken and cracked, giving the impression that the occupants have tried to push their way out. 6. Sunnyside Hospital, Christchurch. Sunnyside was Christchurch's first mental asylum, opened in 1863. It was a Gothic masterpiece of architecture that housed some of New Zealand's most famous figures, including author Janet Frame. But behind the beautiful Victorian facade, the history was one of pain. Staff suicides were disturbingly common, and in 1995, nurses actually walked off the job, citing dangerous conditions that many believe were as much spiritual as they were physical. The hospital was demolished in 2007, but the housing estate built on the site is now a hotbed of activity. Residents have reported hearing the sounds of phantom parties, the clinking of glasses and muffled music from the era when the hospital held social dances for patients. More chilling, however, are the sightings of a nurse in blue who has been seen walking through the walls of the new houses. One resident reported seeing a woman in an old-fashioned nurse's cap standing in their hallway. When they asked if she was lost, she looked up, her face a featureless blur, and walked right through the front door without opening it. The feeling of being watched is so pervasive that some parts of the old grounds remain undeveloped, as even the builders refuse to work there. 5. Waimate Hospital, Waimate. In the quiet heart of South Canterbury, Waimate Hospital stands as a monument to both pioneering medicine and deep, lingering tragedy. Before it was known for shadows, it was a source of local pride. Opened in 1879, it was the site where Dr. Margaret Cruikshank, the first woman to practice medicine in New Zealand, dedicated her life to the community. But the hospital's golden era turned grey during the 1918 influenza pandemic. Dr. Cruikshank herself, exhausted from treating hundreds of patients, finally succumbed to the virus within the very wards she managed. When the hospital eventually closed in 1996, the silence that followed was far from empty. The hospital became haunted by the sheer weight of the lives lost during that pandemic and the decades of illness that followed. The most famous encounter is that of a woman in a red coat, believed by many to be Dr. Cruikshank herself, still walking the perimeter of the grounds as if checking on those she left behind. Urban explorers have recorded more unsettling events. The sound of a heavy gurney being pushed across the floor in the empty maternity wing, and the phantom smell of fresh flowers in rooms that have been derelict for 20 years. One witness reported sitting in the old cafeteria, only to feel a cold hand rest firmly on their shoulder. When they turned, the room was empty, but a single, fresh, wet footprint was visible on the dusty floor. 4. Alice Psychiatric Hospital, Nelson. Hidden in a sun-drenched valley in Nelson, the history of Alice is a dark tapestry of institutional failure. Before it became a psychiatric hospital in 1922, the site was home to the Stoke Orphanage, a place of documented brutality. Under the guise of discipline, children were subjected to solitary confinement and whippings. The land was already soaked in misery long before the psychiatric patients arrived. By the time Alice closed its doors in 2000, it had housed thousands of souls, many of whom were forgotten by the outside world. The haunting began with the echoes of the orphanage, specifically the tragic story of a 13-year-old boy who drowned in the nearby stream while trying to escape the facility's harsh punishments. Today, locals claim the Ngawatu Valley is one of the most oppressive places in the country. People walking near the old orphanage stream have reported the sound of a child's frantic splashing, only to find the water still and silent. Near the remaining hospital villas, shadow figures are frequently seen peeking around the corners of the decaying buildings. One former staff member shared a story of a phantom patient who would regularly stand at the end of the long driveway, waiting for a bus that never came. When approached, the figure would simply dissolve into the evening mist, leaving behind nothing but a sudden bone-chilling cold. 3. Lake Alice Psychiatric Hospital, Rangit K. Lake Alice is perhaps the most controversial name in New Zealand's medical history. Opened in 1950, it was intended as a modern psychiatric facility, but in the 1970s, it became a site of systemic horror. Under the direction of certain staff, the child and adolescent unit became a chamber of punishment therapy, where children were subjected to electroconvulsive therapy without anesthetic and injections of painful chemicals. The hospital didn't just become haunted after it closed in 1999. Survivors claim it was haunted while it was still open, by the screams of the innocent. How did it become haunted? Through the sheer psychic trauma of those who suffered there. Since its closure, the hospital has been largely demolished, but the land remains thick with residual energy. Visitors to the site describe hearing the high-pitched laughter of children playing in the empty fields, which quickly turns into desperate crying. The most terrifying encounter involves the maximum security wing. Paranormal investigators have captured EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, of a man's voice whispering, "Get out," and "They're coming." People often report the sensation of being followed by something low to the ground, as if a small child is crawling behind them, only for the feeling to vanish the moment they reach the main road. 2. Seacliff Lunatic Asylum, near Dunedin. Seacliff was once the grandest building in New Zealand, a Gothic masterpiece of stone perched on the cliffs of Otago. But its beauty masked a structural and human disaster. Before it became haunted, the building literally began to slide toward the sea due to being built on unstable land. The true horror, however, struck on the night of December 8, 1942. A massive fire tore through Ward 5, a wooden addition to the main stone building. 37 women were locked in their rooms and dormitories. Because of wartime staff shortages and locked windows, only 2 survived. The screams of the trapped women could be heard across the coast. Seacliff is widely regarded as the most haunted place in New Zealand because of this singular, horrific event. The Grey Lady of Seacliff is the most frequent apparition, a nurse who allegedly blames herself for the fire. She is seen wandering the terrace, her face twisted in a permanent mask of grief. Visitors to the site, now a park, have reported the sudden, overwhelming smell of burning wood and hair on clear, windless days. Some have seen the phantom of a woman standing at a window that no longer exists, her hands pressed against the air as if trying to push through glass. The energy here is described as a heavy sadness that leaves visitors feeling physically drained and emotionally hollow within minutes of arriving. 1. Kingseat Hospital, Auckland Region. Kingseat Hospital is the undisputed king of New Zealand's haunted locations. Opened in 1932, the history before the haunting is unique. It was largely built by the patients themselves. At its peak, it was a massive self-contained village, but the pressure on the staff was immense. Records suggest that more nurses committed suicide at Kingseat than patients died of natural causes, creating a cycle of trauma that permeated the red brick walls. When the hospital closed in 1999, it didn't stay empty for long. It became the home of Spookers, a haunted attraction that ironically uses the real ghosts of the past to fuel its scares. The site is haunted by over 100 reported apparitions. The most famous is the Grey Nurse, a spirit seen so often in the former nurse's home that staff and visitors have given her a name. She is known for her strictly professional demeanor, often seen walking through walls or adjusting non-existent bedding. But Kingseat has a darker side, the poltergeist of Villa 10. In this specific ward, heavy metal doors have been seen slamming shut by themselves, and furniture has been moved across rooms in full view of witnesses. People have reported being pushed by invisible hands and hearing their own names whispered in the morgue. One of the most chilling encounters involved a security guard who followed what he thought was a trespasser into a dead-end hallway. When the figure turned around, it had no face, just a smooth, pale surface where features should have been. 10 hospitals, thousands of stories. These locations stand as silent witnesses to a time we often choose to forget. Whether it's the grey nurse of Kingseat or the trapped spirits of Seacliff, the echoes of the past refuse to be silenced. Next time you pass an old, ivy-covered clinic or a derelict brick ward, listen closely. Some wounds never truly heal and some patients never truly leave. Thank you for walking these haunted halls with us. Keep your eyes open and never look back.